This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. We are here in Manchester and I'm joined by Adam Morallee, the manager to Joe Joyce. Adam, it's finally here, Joyce-Parker, after all of the stresses you've been through as a team. Saturday night is only a few days away now. How are you all feeling?
Excited for the biggest night of Joe's career so far. I think it's bigger for him than the Olympic final. It's his chance to elevate himself from, what I'd say is the top of the second tier of heavyweights into the elite first tier. If he beats Joyce-Parker, if he stops Joyce-Parker, I think he can be talked about in that top tier.
That's something I asked David Higgins earlier. Where does the winner, in your opinion, winner of this fight, place themselves in kind of the current heavyweight rankings, in your opinion?
I think you got Fury and Usyk out top. I think below that, we'll put AJ to one side for a second. I think you have a load of heavyweights who haven't won world titles. Joe Parker has won a world title, but Dillian Whyte, Joyce-Parker, Joe Joyce. AJ was obviously right at the top of the elite. He's fallen down. It's not for me to say where he's fallen to. He can still sell out 80,000 at Wembley Stadium. So I think he is the top level to a certain extent, and perhaps to a boxing extent with 3 losses. Usyk 0 losses, Fury 0 losses, Joyce 0 losses. So I say it puts Joyce onto the level below Fury and Usyk and entitled to challenge them. That's where I think it puts Joyce.
Heading into this fight, there's been a lot of talk about Joe Joyce's engine and how key and how big of a factor that could be going into the later rounds. Is that what you feel it could come down to, the later rounds, Adam, or do you think that Joe could pull something out of the bag and do something a little bit earlier on in the fight?
I think Parker's going to start quick. I think Parker's team know he has to start quick. I think that shows in their preparation and in certain things we've seen. I think it's possible that when you start that quickly and you have to try and get something done, you can make a mistake, but we're not underestimating Joe Parker. I think Parker's team on the surface appear to be underestimating Joe Joyce, or at least saying they are. I don't think they are. I think they know exactly what they're facing, a machine that's going to come 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 quickly. So I think they're looking to do something early. So will it come down to engine? No, I don't actually. I think it will come down to concentration and ability to see how Parker deals with Joyce's pressure from the early rounds onwards.
Joe Parker's hand speed has been a key factor that's been spoken about on his behalf in terms of what could benefit him. How should Joe Joyce look to kind of counteract that to ensure that Parker's hand speed doesn't look to dictate the fight, shall we say?
Look, I think, Parker's camp have been saying things like Joe Joyce has 0 boxing ability. This is a guy who's a silver medalist, should have been a gold medalist. And when you look at his ability, you look when Joe switched on, look at that Dubois fight. Everybody said Joyce would have been out there 2-3 rounds. That didn't happen. Joe was very, very calculated in that fight. We've got Salas here, who I would say is probably the #1 coach in the world right now. 16 world champions, never had a heavyweight world champion. I think Joe's going to listen to that game plan, and we've got a very, very solid game plan. So I don't think it'll be dictated by Parker's hand speed. I think we've got massive respect for Joe Parker. He's elite. But this fight will be dictated by Joe Joyce's game plan.
I didn't realise until somebody told me the other day that Joe Joyce is 37 now. When you see him in the gym, do you think at all that his age shows, or does it surprise you that he still looks as fit as what he does now?
His numbers, his strength and conditioning numbers are improving year on year, which is pretty incredible. It was his birthday on Monday. I think age does eventually catch up with an athlete. I still think Joe is in his prime as a heavyweight. How long that will last for, I don't know, but I think for Joe's whole career, we've had to press fast forward. He turned over 5 years ago in October 2017 when he was 32 years old. There's never ever been any time to waste with Joe Joyce. But I do not think that he's showing any signs of decline.
If Joe wins on Saturday night, how much pressure will you be putting on the WBO to ensure that mandatory position is made good of and he can challenge whoever holds the title in the nearest time to Joe's fight, which obviously will be Alexander Usyk currently, will get that opportunity?
I think it's very important it's for the interim title for a number of reasons. Purse splits if he fights the champion, whether that be Usyk or Fury. But more importantly, if the title gets vacated by anyone, Joe becomes the full champ. I think you've got to look at all the mandatories that are out there. The IBF mandatory with Urgovic, WBO with Daniel Dubois. The winner of Undisputed, which I think will happen in about February time, can't take all those mandatories on. So I think Joe will fight Usyk. The mandatory is not due until the 25th of March. Joe will fight Usyk, I think, in the first 6 months of next year. or that title, or sorry, Usyk or Fury, or that title will be vacated.
What do you make of the current dynamics of a heavyweight division? Because there's a lot of fights being discussed, and two of them at the top are Fury-Joshua and Usyk-Wilder. Now, for you guys, say Usyk-Wilder was to happen, I know it's one you'll keep your eye on because of that WBO stance. But your thoughts? Do you think we see Alexander Usyk and Deontay Wilder potentially shevering?
Yeah, I mean, I think Usyk's. Look, the governing bodies have been very generous to AJ, Fury, Usyk because they believe undisputed is happening. And when undisputed happens, kind of rule books out the window and they'll let different things happen. But I think Usyk-Wilder would be a very interesting fight to see happen. I don't think Wilder's ranked in the WBO. I don't think he'd qualify for a voluntary fight. I don't know. I think there's technical issues with Usyk-Wilder. I mean, from the outside, you might say Fury's talking about AJ, Usyk's suddenly talking about Wilder. Are they really just negotiating with each other? Has Fury dragged AJ into this to get better terms of Usyk? Has Usyk dragged Wilder into this to get better terms of Fury? I do feel it's very very quid pro quo what's happening, why Usyk's dragged Wilder in. So I don't know if either of those fights will happen. If I was a betting man, I'd be incredibly surprised for both to happen. I'd say it's 50-50 that one happens.
Over two of them, I would imagine maybe. Which one would you say is most likely? Fury-Joshua?
Fury, AJ, yeah.
So with that in mind, what have you made of all of the talk? I know you've just kind of given me a brief breakdown as to how you see it, but do you think that it's a fight which we could see? When would you like to see a cut-off by if that was to happen?
Look, I mean, it's so tough to work out what's actually going on. On the outside, people are saying that it's agreed. So if they did want to fight, that's how it would be. But also, if one of them didn't want to fight, you'd still be seeing the same thing on the surface because no one's going to break. If this fight doesn't happen, rest assured both parties will blame each other. Fury will say Joshua didn't fancy it, Joshua will say Fury didn't fancy it. So it's still impossible from the outside to tell if this is a real fight or not, and you won't find out for a couple of weeks. My gut feel is, if I had to put money on it, sadly I don't think it will happen one way or another. I'd love it to happen. Brilliant for the UK. I hope it happens in the UK. But I just kind of feel like you saw Char come out the woodwork and start talking. Like, why is that happening? Is the whole Fury AJ thing, Fury putting pressure on Usyk? I'd love to see it happen though.
Obviously, just away from that, get your thoughts on a couple of your other fighters who only recently come back from Albania, Florian Marku with that successful night out there. How is he doing?
Yeah, Florian suffered a bit of a cut below his eye, bit of a hand injury, so we've got to reassess that, see when he can come back. But loads of exciting fights out there for Florian. I particularly like the Tyrone McKenna fight for Florian. But yeah, loads of... Look, Florian's a big talker. His last performance, as we've discussed, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. That makes more people come out the woodwork and say, I want to fight Florian Marku. He's no good. So loads of options for Florian.
And Lerrone Richards, what's the latest with him on that kind of a promotional standpoint?
Yeah, got two very good promotional conversations going on with Lerrone Richards, and one should drop very soon.
All right, Adam, we'll leave that there now. I know you don't want me to press you anymore on that because you can't say much more, but thank you for speaking to me in ID Boxing.
Thanks, Andy.